The first full day of campaigning for the Voice referendum has kicked off with Yes volunteers targeting Liberal-held marginal seats. Joining us live now, Liberal MP and Yes 23 campaigner Julian Leeser. Julian, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for your time as always. So can I ask, on this morning, how you're feeling as a Conservative in a Conservative seat campaigning against the Conservatives?
I'm feeling very energised this morning by the great response I've had at Hornsby for the Yes campaign. I'm here with the former Liberal Premier Barry O'Farrell, who used to represent this part of Sydney. I'm also here with my state colleague Matt Keane, and with people from all different parties and people who've never campaigned before in an election. They've come forward because they're proud of our community, they're proud of our country, and they want to see Australians make this important change, this change that will recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our constitution, that will provide for an opportunity for the Parliament to listen to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people through this new committee called The Voice, and will help us close the gap in education, employment, healthcare and housing. So
should folks expect more of this, Julian, in the coming 6 weeks or so, this campaigning in blue seats?
Oh, people will be campaigning right across the country, Pete, because it's important that we give people the information that they need to cast a yes vote on referendum day on the 14th of October. I want to make sure Australians are informed. I want to make sure that they've seen the provision. I want to make sure that we've been able to answer their questions. And that's what this morning is about. It's about giving commuters as they go to work, mums and dads as they take their kids to school, information that they can read so that they can make an informed choice on the 14th of October.
There is certainly a lot of hostility at the moment, online at the moment. I've noticed a fair bit of it, Julian. Are you seeing any of it on the ground at all?
No, we're seeing almost none of it on the ground. I mean, I think there's a bit of a hothouse on social media, but when you actually get out in community, people are very positive about this issue. The constitutional recognition has been a long time coming. It's been a dream of people since the 1930s. This change completes our constitution and it recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but it also provides us for a practical means of helping to close the gap and address some of those terrible statistics that we know, where an Aboriginal person's life expectancy is 8 years lower than the rest of our population, where an Aboriginal person is 2.5 times more likely to die by suicide than the rest of the population, where 1 in 2 Aboriginal people live at or below the poverty line. This is a situation that can't continue, and this referendum gives us an opportunity to achieve structural change to address that. And that's what's exciting people, that's what's motivating people to come out this morning and get involved in this campaign and to vote yes.
Julian, Tony Abbott wrote yesterday in the Sydney Morning Herald that it's hard to imagine, and this is just part of it, it's hard to imagine how a voice could add to the advice already coming from a plethora of existing consultation mechanisms. The voice would just be more of the same, especially more money. And I have to say, I've heard that a bit too. It's a common reaction from folks, and it's true, is it not?
No, what makes the Voice different is the Voice is actually chosen by Aboriginal people in the local and regional communities, and it feeds into the national scene through its place in the Constitution. And what is important about it is because it's in the Constitution, it'll have a different status to many of those other bodies. My experience, my long experience in this policy space, as Chair of the House Indigenous Affairs Committee, as somebody who's been an advocate for this for over 10 years and has worked in Indigenous policy, is that too often we actually fail to listen to Indigenous people on the ground. Too often we fail to ensure that smart ideas that are dreamt up in Canberra actually are ground-truthed in community, and that's what this is about fundamentally.
Okay, well, I mean, just for an argument here, so the National Indigenous Australians Agency, its mission is to ensure Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lives are heard, recognised and empowered. That sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it?
Well, the National Indigenous Australians Agency is just a rebranded old Commonwealth Department of Aboriginal Affairs. That's all it is.
Right.
It's full of good public servants, but in many respects,
it's the problem. Voice?
Well, its job is to deliver the programs and the funding. The Voice's job isn't to deliver programs and funding, it's to provide advice. It's to check that when the National Indigenous Agency is coming up with a policy idea, that it actually has some chance of working on the ground, because the National Indigenous Australians Agency is an agency based in Canberra. It's based in some regional parts, but it doesn't get into community. The benefit of the Voice is it is connected with the local and regional bodies on the ground that will provide advice to the public service, to the ministers and to the Parliament, and that should help us close the gap.
Okay. Well, Julian Leeser, as always, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.